The rain came down hard on Highway 19, turning the cracked asphalt into a mirror of headlights and lightning. Claire had been driving for hours. Her dog Samson curled in the back seat, restless, whining at every passing shadow. When the vacancy sign of the Pine Hollow Motel flickered through the storm, relief spread through her body like warmth after frostbite. But when she unlocked the door to room 6 and stepped inside, Samson froze. Hackles raised, teeth bared. He refused to follow. Claire thought it was just nerves. She would soon learn the dog was the only one telling the truth. The Pine Hollow Motel sat hunched against the storm, its shingles curled like dead leaves, neon vacancy sign sputtering like a dying firefly. Claire parked beneath the dripping eave, Samson's nails clicking on the back seat as he shifted restlessly. "Come on, boy," she coaxed, grabbing her duffel bag. The office had smelled of coffee gone sour, the old clerk barely lifting his gaze from the small television as he slid her the key. No pleasantries, just a muttered, "Room 6. His voice cracked with phlegm, like he'd spoken too many words in his life already. Claire unlocked the door, pushing against the damp wood. The room greeted her with the stale breath of mildew, cigarette smoke, and something metallic she couldn't place. A single lamp buzzed faintly on the nightstand, casting jaundiced light across the peeling wallpaper. "Not bad," she whispered, more to herself than to Samson. But Samson didn't budge. He stood in the doorway, muscles taut, hackles lifted, eyes locked on the far wall like it was alive. A growl rumbled low in his chest, vibrating against the storm outside. "Samson, come." Claire snapped her fingers, impatient. "It's just for one night." The shepherd's paws scraped the concrete as he backed away, teeth bared, tail stiff. He'd never acted this way before, not once in 7 years. Claire sighed, her exhaustion outweighing curiosity. "Fine. Stay in the car if you can be difficult." She left the door cracked so he could come in later, then dropped her duffel on the bed. The springs groaned under its weight. She sat down, the mattress damp, the blanket scratchy against her hands. The room hummed with silence. Not just quiet. Silence. No wind crept through the thin windows. No pipes gurgled in the walls. Just the soft buzz of the lamp and her own heartbeat. Claire rubbed her temples. The storm had drained her. All she wanted was sleep. But her eyes kept darting to the far wall. The wallpaper there sagged, bubbled in odd shapes, as though water had seeped behind it long ago. And faintly, so faintly she almost doubted it, she thought she heard a scratching. She woke to Samson barking. Her heart jolted as she sat upright, the room black, but for the thin stripe of light from the cracked door. Samson's silhouette loomed just outside, teeth flashing as he snarled at the same wall he'd refused to pass earlier. "Samson," Claire hissed, throwing off the blanket. "Quiet, you'll wake." A sound cut her short, not scratching this time. Peeling, a slow, deliberate tear, like fingernails dragging through damp paper. Claire's breath snagged. The lamp flickered once, then steadied. She forced herself to move closer, barefoot on the cold linoleum. The wall loomed, the sagging paper casting strange shadows in thin light. She pressed her palm against it. Damp, soft, almost spongy. Another tear whispered behind it, and something shifted beneath her hand. Claire jerked back, stumbling. Her mind scrambled for logic. Old pipes. Mice. Just the storm swelling the wood. But the sound was wrong. Too measured. Too steady. She fled to the bed, snatched her phone, and dialed reception. The line rang once. Twice. Then clicked. No greeting. No voice. Just a long exhale on the other end, close, deliberate. Claire froze. "Hello." Static. Then the line went dead. She didn't sleep. She sat against the headboard, lamp burning, watching the wall until dawn. Samson never stopped growling, his throat raw by morning. At first light, Claire marched to the office, Samson glued to her side. The clerk looked up from his paper, unbothered, his glasses magnified pale, washed-out eyes. That room. Claire snapped, tossing the key onto the counter. There's something wrong with the wall. He didn't even glance at the key, just folded his paper neatly. "Room 6, he said softly, as though reciting from memory. Always room 6. Her skin prickled. What the hell does that mean? The clerk's lips twitched, a shadow of something between pity and warning. Best you keep driving, miss. Driving? Claire stared at him, rain dripping from her hair. After no sleep, and that, whatever the hell. He leaned forward suddenly, his sour breath washing over her. Don't peel it back. Her chest tightened. I'm serious, he whispered, eyes locked on hers. Don't peel it back. Folks that do, he trailed off, shaking his head. Samson barked once, sharp enough to make the clerk flinch. Claire scooped up the key, glaring. If you know something, you'd better. But it already turned away, muttering, best keep driving, as though she'd never been there. Claire should have left. Every part of her screamed to pack up and go. But exhaustion pinned her, and stubbornness nailed her to the bed. By late afternoon, she sat staring at the sagging wall again, phone clutched in her lap. The storm had passed, sunlight spilling through thin curtains, making the wallpaper almost glow. Samson whined, pacing. All right, she whispered. We'll look. Just a peek. She slid a fingernail beneath the curled edge of wallpaper and tugged. The paper came loose with a damp sigh, curling outward in long strips. The smell hit her first, metallic, rotten, sweet. Samson gagged, pawing at the air. Behind the wallpaper, the wall wasn't wood. It wasn't plaster. It was flesh. Claire staggered back, her hand clamped over her mouth. The surface bulged, mottled, veins webbing beneath a translucent layer of skin. Some parts were raw, weeping dark fluid that dripped onto the floor. Samson barked frantically, clawing at the door, desperate to escape. Claire stumbled forward, compelled, horrified. She reached out, trembling fingers grazing the surface. Warm, beating faintly like the pulse of a vein. Her breath broke. Oh, God! And then fingers from deep inside the wall. Pale fingers pushed forward, straining beneath the thin membrane, clawing to get out. The paper she'd torn writhed, curling tighter, sealing itself as if the wall wanted to swallow the hand back. Claire shrieked, stumbling over the bed, scrambling for the door. Samson lunged out first, dragging her into the daylight. She didn't stop running until they were in the car, gravel spitting beneath the tires as she tore out the parking lot. Her heart jackhammered, breath ragged. She glanced once in the rearview mirror. The motel stood silent, ordinary, the peeling wallpaper fluttering in the breeze of her imagination. But she couldn't shake the clerk's words. Don't peel it back. The road unspooled beneath Claire's tires, a gray ribbon slick with yesterday's storm. Samson lay in the back seat, panting hard, his ears still pinned flat, every muscle tight. His fear hadn't faded once since they fled the Pine Hollow Motel. Claire gripped the wheel tighter. The morning sun cut through the mist, painting the pines gold, but nothing about it felt safe. She replayed the image again and again, skin stretched across the wall, veins crawling, the fingers pressing outward. She almost convinced herself it was delirium, a trick of exhaustion. But Samson had seen it too. She needed answers. Her phone buzzed against the console. Mom. Claire ignored it. The last time they'd spoken, her mother had thrown the same words at her as always. Running doesn't fix anything. Easy for her to say, living comfortably in the same house for 30 years, while Claire's life had been reduced to motels and duffel bags. The call ended. A voicemail dinged. Claire didn't bother listening. Samson whined. Yeah, she muttered. I know. Up ahead, a green sign broke the endless trees. Dry Creek, 12 miles. She'd heard of it. Small town. One diner, one gas station. Maybe someone there knew something about Pine Hollow. Or maybe she was just desperate to feel less alone. Dry Creek sat like a bruise in the middle of nowhere. A cluster of leaning buildings, paint weathered down to gray, and a church steeple that looked like it might collapse in the next storm. Claire pulled into the diner's gravel lot. Samson leapt out first, sniffing the air, calmer now, but still restless. The diner smelled of grease and coffee. A bell jingled as she pushed the door open. Heads turned. In a town this small, strangers weren't just noticed. They were cataloged. A waitress in her 50s with dyed red hair and tired eyes approached, pad in hand. "Sit anywhere you like." Claire slid into a booth near the window. Samson curled beneath the table, ever watchful. The waitress poured coffee without asking. "Passing through?" Something like that. The woman's gaze lingered. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Claire's lips twitched. "Maybe I did." By the time she finished recounting the motel, the waitress, Nancy, her tag read, stood frozen with a coffee pot in her hand. "Room 6, she asked softly. Claire stiffened. "You know it." Nancy set the pot down carefully. "Folks around here avoid that place. Been empty on and off for years, except drifters. And they don't stay long." "Because of the wall?" Nancy hesitated, then glanced around the diner. A trucker slurped his soup. A young couple laughed quietly. Nobody seemed to be listening, but she lowered her voice anyway. "Not the wall. The people." Claire frowned. "The clerk?" Nancy nodded. "That's Walter. His family owned the place forever. There were rumors back in the 90s. Girls passing through went missing. Cops couldn't prove nothing, but everybody knew. Then one night the place caught fire. Kitchen went up. 3 rooms burned. They rebuilt most of it. But room 6 stayed." "Stayed what?" Nancy's eyes were haunted. "Wrong. Like it soaked something in." Claire's stomach twisted. "You think he's hiding bodies in the walls?" Nancy shook her head sharply. "Don't ask me what's in there. I just know it ain't right. Best thing you can do is keep driving." Claire leaned back, frustrated. "That's what everyone keeps saying. Drive, drive, drive. But no one tells me why." Nancy studied her. "Because once you start peeling, you can't stop." Claire opened her mouth, but the bell over the diner door jingled. Walter walked in. He looked smaller in daylight, hunched in his coat, but his eyes still carried that washed-out emptiness. When he saw Claire, his face didn't change. Not surprise. Not anger. Nothing. He slid onto a stool at the counter. Nancy stiffened. "I'll get your check," she whispered, then hurried off. Claire's pulse quickened. Walter hadn't just happened into Dry Creek. He'd followed her. She waited a few minutes, then slipped from the booth. Samson rose instantly, ears pricked. They made for the door, but Walter's voice stopped her. "You shouldn't have touched it." Claire froze. Walter sipped his coffee, his voice steady, calm. "It was quiet until you pulled it back. Now it'll want more." Her throat went dry. "What the hell is it?" He set the mug down. "Not what? Who?" Claire's skin went cold. Walter's pale eyes met hers, unblinking. "If you care about breathing, don't go back." Samson growled low. Claire yanked the door open and shoved into the daylight, her pulse hammering. That night, she checked into a different motel. Cleaner, newer, 2 towns away. She pushed a chair against the door, kept the TV running, tried to ignore the way Samson whined at the corner walls. Sleep came in ragged bursts, and then she dreamed. She was back in room 6, standing before the wall. The wallpaper peeled itself in slow curls, revealing flesh, pulsing, shifting. A woman's face pressed against it from beneath, lips moving soundlessly. Claire leaned closer. The lips formed words, "Help me." She woke gasping, soaked in sweat. Samson barked at the wall again, as though he'd seen the same dream. By morning, Claire's resolve hardened. She couldn't leave it. If someone was in there, if someone had been trapped, she had to know. She told herself it was guilt. A missing girl could be begging for help, and she'd just run. But deeper down, she knew it wasn't just guilt. It was obsession. The road carried her back to Pine Hollow before she fully admitted it. Walter was nowhere in sight when she pulled in. The neon vacancy sign buzzed in the dull afternoon. Room 6 sat waiting, the door crooked mouth. Claire killed the engine. Samson barked furiously, refusing to leave the car. "I know, boy," she whispered, pressing her forehead to his. "Stay here." She stepped into the room. The smell hit instantly. Mildew, rot, copper. The wallpaper she'd peeled was flat again, as if someone had pasted it back overnight. Her hand shook as she pulled out her pocket knife and slit a line straight down the center. The paper parted with a sigh. Behind it, the flesh writhed. Veins pulsed, slick and blue. Faces shifted in and out of the surface. Mouths gasping, eyes rolling white. She stumbled back, while rising. One face pressed closer than the rest. A girl, maybe 20, hair matted to her cheeks. Her lips moved soundlessly before a gurgle rose from the wall itself. "Help me!" Claire's scream tore from her throat. The door slammed shut behind her. Walter stood there, blocking the exit, his pale eyes empty, but his mouth set in grim determination. "I told you not to peel." Claire's back hit the bed, knife trembling in her hand. "What is it?" she demanded, voice breaking. "What the hell is that?" Walter's jaw flexed. "A debt. One my father made. This land, don't forget." He stepped closer. "Every time someone peels back, it feeds. And once you've seen, it won't let you leave clean." Claire's stomach twisted. "You mean they're alive in there?" His face cracked with something like pain. "Alive enough." The wall groaned, bulged outward, a chorus of wet moans filling the room. Hands pressed forward, desperate, clawing. Walter raised his voice over the sound. "You think you can save them. You can't, but it'll try to make you." The wallpaper ripped wider on its own, and a pale arm shot out, grasping Claire's wrist with ice-cold fingers. She screamed as Walter lunged forward, prying her free. The wall shuddered like a living thing, faces wailing in unison. "Get out!" Walter roared, shoving her toward the door. Claire staggered into the rain, Samson barking wildly from the car. She spun back in time to see Walter framed in the doorway, the wall's hands dragging him inside. His face was calm as the flesh swallowed him. "Drive," he whispered. Then he was gone. The door slammed shut, leaving only silence. Claire stumbled to the car, trembling. She started the engine with shaking hands, gravel spraying as she tore away from the motel. But the sound followed her. A faint scratching in the back seat. She glanced in the mirror. The wallpaper had peeled itself onto her duffel bag, and something inside it was moving. The duffel bag thumped once against the back seat, as though something inside had shifted. Claire's breath hitched. Samson growled deep in his chest, eyes locked on the bag, ears flat to his skull. "Stay back," Claire whispered, though she wasn't sure if it was to herself or the dog. The bag twitched again. Then silence. She pulled onto the shoulder, heart hammering, rain pattering against the windshield. With trembling fingers, she unzipped it. Inside lay only clothes, damp and smelling faintly of mildew, but pressed to the inner lining, fused to the fabric like a second skin, was a square of wallpaper. It pulsed once, faintly like a heartbeat. Claire slammed the bag shut. Samson barked furiously, teeth flashing. Her mind spun. Walter had said once you peel, it won't let you leave clean. And now she carried a piece of room, 6 with her. She should have tossed the bag into the ditch and driven away. But some part of her couldn't, because in that faint pulse, she thought she heard it again. A whisper, "Help me." Dry Creek Sheriff's Office was a squat brick building with bars on the windows. Sheriff Daniel Mercer was mid-40s, sun-littered face, the kind of man who'd seen too much to waste words. He looked at Claire like he was measuring her before she even spoke. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "the wall had faces." Claire's voice trembled. "Not just faces. People. Alive. Or something like it." She shoved the duffel across his desk. "Check for yourself." Mercer eyed the bag warily, then unzipped it. He lifted the flap and froze. The square of wallpaper pulsed once, faint beneath the fabric, then stilled. His jaw tightened. He zipped the bag shut again. "Where'd you say this was?" "Pine Hollow Motel. Room 6. The clerk, Walter, he knew. He tried to warn me." Mercer's eyes flicked toward the frosted window, his face unreadable. Finally, he said, "You should leave town, miss. Take your dog. Forget what you saw." Claire stared at him. "That's it? You're the sheriff." He cut her off, voice like steel. "And I know when not to dig. You should learn the same." Betrayal burned hot in her chest. First Nancy, now Mercer. Everyone wanted her to run. to stay quiet. And yet she couldn't, not with the whispers pressing against her skull. "Someone's alive in there," she snapped. "Maybe more than one, and you want to just walk away." Mercer's gaze sharpened. "Alive is not the word I'd use." She stormed out, Samson at her side, but Mercer's words stuck. By nightfall, she found herself parked across from the motel again. The neon sign flickered in the dark, and room 6 window glowed faintly, as though waiting for her. She wasn't alone this time. Nancy stood by the office door, cigarette trembling between her fingers. Her face was pale, eyes darting like she was caught in some terrible decision. When she spotted Claire, she froze. Then, after a long drag, she walked over. "You went back," Nancy said flatly. Claire bristled. "You knew. All of you knew. And you just let people." Nancy cut her off with a shake of her head. "You don't understand. Walter wasn't lying. It's not a motel. Not really. It's a mouth. And every few years it opens." Claire's stomach turned. "Then why not burn it down?" Nancy laughed bitterly. "They tried. My daddy was one of them. Fire doesn't touch it. Neither does a bulldozer, dynamite, holy water, you name it. The land holds it. All we can do is keep people away." Claire whispered, "But the voices—" Nancy's eyes glistened. "That's the worst of it. The ones you hear, they're bait. Whatever's inside, it knows you want to save them." Claire swallowed hard. "Then Walter fed it. For years. Hitchhikers, drifters. He said it was the only way to keep it quiet. But he stopped after the fire. Said it had taken enough." She exhaled smoke, eyes wet. "And now you peeled it back. Which means—" The motel groaned, a low, guttural sound that rolled through the ground beneath their feet. Nancy's face went white. "It's waking." The air thickened. Lights in the rooms flickered. Samson barked wildly, claws scraping the pavement as he pulled against his leash. The door to room 6 creaked open on its own. Claire's body locked with dread. Inside, the wallpaper shivered, bulging outward. Fingers pushed through, dozens of them, pale and slick. Faces pressed forward, mouths opening in silent screams. Nancy whispered, "It wants you." Claire shook her head violently. "No, I didn't." But then she saw it. One of the faces. Young, female, bruised, lips cracked. Her sister. Claire staggered, throat closing. No, that's not." Nancy grabbed her arm. "That's not real. It'll show you whatever has to. Don't believe it." But the face mouthed her name. Claire. Her knees buckled. 7 years since her sister vanished. No note, no trace. Just gone. And now here she was, reaching through the wall. Samson snarled, teeth bared. Claire stepped toward the door, tears streaming. "Stop." Nancy yanked her back. "That's not your sister. It's how it tricks you." The wall groaned louder, faces wailing. Hands tore through the wallpaper, reaching, grasping. One brushed Claire's arm, cold, wet, electric. Her skin burned where it touched. Nancy screamed, dragging her toward the car. "Run!" But Claire couldn't. Not with that face. Not with that voice. She ripped free and lunged toward the room. The moment she crossed the threshold, the air collapsed around her, thick and wet, pulling her toward the wall. The faces surged forward, mouths opening wider, howling in unison. Her sister's face was inches away, eyes glassy with terror. "Help me," she whispered. Claire pressed her palm to the wall. Flesh pulsed beneath her touch. For one awful heartbeat, she believed. Then Samson leapt. He barreled into her, knocking her off balance, teeth sinking into the fleshy wall. The room shrieked, an inhuman sound that rattled the windows. The wall convulsed, slamming Samson aside, but the spell was broken. Claire stumbled back, the illusion fading. Her sister's face warped, twisting into something monstrous before dissolving into the pulsing mass. Nancy grabbed her, dragging her out as the door slammed shut behind them with a thunderous crack. The motel went silent. They collapsed on the gravel, gasping. Samson limped, whining, his muzzle smeared with something dark. Nancy crushed her cigarette into the dirt with shaking hands. "Now you see. That's why we don't peel it back." Claire's chest heaved, tears streaking her face. She looked at Samson, bleeding but alive, loyal enough to drag her from hell itself. The neon sign sputtered one last time, then went dark. At dawn, the motel stood empty. Room 6 window was boarded shut, as if nothing had ever happened. Claire wrapped Samson's paw, kissed his head, and loaded him into the car. Nancy stood by the roadside, eyes hollow. "You'll keep running," Nancy said quietly. Claire shook her head. "No, I'll keep living." Nancy's eyes softened, almost a smile. "Then you're luckier than most." Claire started the engine. The road stretched ahead, endless and uncertain, but Samson rested his head in her lap, warm and steady. She drove without looking back. Behind them, the Pine Hollow Motel sat silent, waiting. Final resolution. Claire never found her sister. Deep down, she knew she never would. But as the miles blurred past, she realized the motel had given her something else. The truth she'd been running from. Some wounds don't close. Some walls should never be peeled. She reached for Samson's paw and held it gently, the only heartbeat that mattered pressing steady against her palm. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was running. She felt like she was free.